Hello and welcome. Do you recognize this place? About probably 2 years, 18 months, 2 years ago, I would be here daily giving my talks on the beach. It's just a few feet, 100 yards from my kuti, but given the shelter of my kuti, that is my normal location for these talks these days. As you know, there's some now refurbishment work going on to renovate the building next door. So it being a little bit noisy and dusty, my kuti being engulfed in dust this morning, although the workers are being so quiet and respectful, it's wonderful to see. I thought I'd get out of their way, come down to the beach. I'm not sure whether you can see me very well. Probably the lighting is the wrong way round, but hopefully you can hear me clearly. Maybe the sea in the background. Moving on with your comments and questions here today. Can you make a video on Shramana rituals of Theravada Buddhists, please? We're trying to really abandon ritualistic behavior, rituals, in the understanding that it's not those that do us good. It is the development of that understanding that leads to wisdom, ultimately enlightenment, and the abandonment of fruitless rituals, activities of devotional practice that really rely on the hope and wishes and praying and worship aspect of a belief system. That is not Theravada Buddhism. As close as Shramana meaning renunciation in a way, or tapas, ascetic practices, goes with regards to the Theravada Buddhist tradition, our process of renunciation as bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, Buddhist monks or Buddhist nuns, is to adapt our lives to the middle path through the renunciation of worldly life, all of our assets, even our friends and families, to that of a simple bhikkhu's life. Interestingly, I read a comment very much against the donation and giving of alms of any kind to bhikkhus whom are seemingly well off and living seemingly, from this commenter's point of view and perspective, a good life in relatively poor countries. Directing his comment, and not unfoundedly, but towards perhaps people coming from a more comfortable, even luxurious background and moving to third world countries to live the bhikkhu life or to practice, but then benefiting off the generosity of others. But one must not forget, when you ordain as a bhikkhu, you renounce all worldly goods, even money, or the use of. Some things you can't. So in my own case, I renounce all money, all my chattels, goods, giving them away. My life's savings, any available pension funds, have been given, directed, used to help those in need in the countries where I've been generously hosted as a bhikkhu, but on the very bare minimum requirements that a bhikkhu needs. A little food each day, some basic robes, basic shelter, and the medicines only as and when required that are necessary. My savings, my pension funds have been given and donated or used to support that process of coming to other countries, airline tickets, visas, etc., in order for me to take upon myself this life of renunciation and ordain as a bhikkhu at no expense to anyone or any party or organisation in those countries that I have visited. I must stress that. Whether that's always the case is neither here nor there. The act of dana and generosity is just that. your karma. What happens afterwards is not your karma. Your intention is to do good, punya karma, meritorious actions. In my case, and as it was directed, the comment in relation to a video of mine, a talk of mine, my only reply is that I have given up all my life savings, pensions, and all future pensions will be directed similarly to those that are hosting me so generously in their country. So I live at no cost to any others, other than a little food that is freely given to me each day, the shelter. Even that has come from funds that were originally in the pot as a result of my renunciation, and have subsequently been additionally topped up by yourselves. But with that in aim, to help others in this neighbourhood, in this locality that is supporting me, and in turn I try to support them. That is the purpose of this building we're refurbishing together, in order that they have a place to come locally and meditate as well as yourselves. They do have other places, but quite far afield, and the temples here are mainly for devotional practices. And yes, where people do, whom have little income, little means, give up their little they have to support their own monks, sanghas in their own countries, and that is their will. But I actually do not take anything from any countries that I am living within by way of financial support. So I wanted to just, on the notion of that comment in the back of my mind there, make that very clear. And if there's anybody with any doubts or questions about that, please address them to me directly. You don't need to beat around the bush, because this is transparency. There's nothing to hide there, okay? What you see is what you get. What I'm wearing, what I'm doing here, it's all down to what I'm supplied with in this present moment here. Yes, okay, not the light for reading these questions isn't too clever, is it? How do I do that better? Ah, here we go. Okay. How did you go from not knowing to all this knowledge? When is the first step on this journey? So I mean, I wouldn't say I have any more knowledge experientially than any other person of my age. Maybe I've done a few things differently, a few things more than others. But what is the first step? I'm talking about Dharma and applying monastic life experientially and applying the Dharma to our everyday lives in all of our actions of body, speech and mind, primarily here in these talks. This is how we use this practice, living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path, to our advantage, to improve our lives, to develop contentment. I've learned this from my teachers, from the Sangha, from taking refuge in the Buddha, our teacher, from studying and listening to the Dharma, his teachings, as provided by the Arya Sangha, the Noble Sangha. That is, his disciples and the lineage of those disciples, subsequently our teachers, the Sangha of monks, nuns, in my case bhikkhus with whom I've lived with, ordained under, taken preceptorship with, and been trained, ordained, trained, and pointed in the right direction towards a practice. To some extent you can choose a path of intellectual study, which I didn't, or practice, meditation, which I did, and they will direct you towards teachers that are most proficient in that area. The first step, I think, is to get a basic understanding of Buddhism. Now this can be found in one of the best books for this purpose to begin with, apart from firstly the chanting book, which summarizes some of the suttas and the reflections that are important to come to understand Buddhism. The Dhammapada, which is poetic verses, in a way, prose, taken from the suttas, the discourses, the words, the teachings of the Buddha to his disciples and to folk he came upon during his 45 years of teaching. A good starting point, which summarizes a lot of those teachings in the Sutta Pitaka, but also takes into account aspects of Buddhism as a whole in relation to the Sangha and its more esoteric nature, workings of the mind, and some of the commentarial aspects of the Dharma we find in the Abhidharma, the third of the Tipitaka, the three baskets, the Buddhist scriptures. We have the Vinaya Pitaka, the Sutta Pitaka, then the Abhidharma. A good summary of that is the Word of the Buddha by Nyanatiloka Bhikkhu. Bhante Nyanatiloka Bhikkhu, the Word of the Buddha. If you Google that, you'll find a way, or I can send you the link if you send me an email. This is the basis of Buddhism. That is the starting point to all knowledge. It's how you apply it, though. It isn't an intellectual study, a learning process, learning by rote. It's an application of those teachings, leading to something, either continuing to practice within lay life or to renounce lay life, give it all up, and just become as little as you can, really, as small a footprint as possible on the landscape, being a Buddhist monk in simple robes with very inexpensive and simple needs. And if you can, sharing that experience with others, if it's useful and it leads them towards a more content existence, either in lay life or even developing to something of a more renunciant nature, whether it's remaining in lay life with less, or even taking the full path towards training and ordination. Okay. Should I observe the natural breath, or should I breathe intentionally and then be aware of the incoming and outgoing breath? Yes, the natural breath. Observe the breath. The beauty of the breath is it's telling you a lot about the workings and the physiology of your body, your physical body, in the present moment, here and now. If you're breathing really quickly and heavily, it's because you've been working your body. Similarly, anxiety and nervousness or even fear is exacerbated, shown in the breath, can be seen in the breath, and also in a kind of reactionary way. Hyperventilation then can lead to further anxiety. So you'll often hear people in a state of a panic attack or something leading to a panic attack being told to just, in that instance, control their breath, as you refer to, because that is a way of bringing the mind back to the present moment, here and now, away from future concerns or past worries, and focusing on something other than that concern, that fear, that anxiety, into the present moment, here and now, with something very real and body related, bringing the mind, the attention, the conscious awareness into the body, here and now, the breath. In that set of circumstances, yes, you need to perhaps breathe in a controlled way, breathe out in a controlled way, and even need assistance of another to control a panic attack. But for our practice, it is just the observation of that breath, knowing the whole body of the breath as we breathe in, and the whole body of the breath, the volume of air as we exhale it. The quality of that breath. Is it long? Is it short? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it cool? Is it warm? Is it indetectable? The nature of the breath, without examination and judgment as to what it's indicating about your physiology or your mental state, but just with acceptance that that is giving you a clear anchor foot in the present moment, here and now. My house is a war zone. How do I accept it? So I wouldn't say my house, my kuti, is a war zone, but what I've done is I've stepped aside and I've come here to talk to you. Or you could come here, I will remain here for the rest of the day. This is my place of abiding for my meditation, rather than return to the house that is far from a war zone, but there is things going on not conducive to the practice. If you can, that's what you do, you avoid it. But if you can't, then there's somewhere in your house, I have identified even in the tiniest of buildings, my kuti, which is just I don't know how many feet, not many foot square room, concrete room with a clay tile roof. I have found a corner away from the windows, away from the doors, with some shade. You have to keep the windows and doors open because of the heat and have some breeze passing through, but where I can still sit and enjoy meditation. I say I found it, it's actually where the cats go and sit. So I noticed that they have the very best spot in my kuti if things are going on outside. So I might be stealing their little place, their little corner. It's also the driest place. Cats are very wonderful at identifying these sort of situations. However much it rains, it never gets wet in that particular corner. So albeit it's in the washroom, it's still a wonderful little place for me to go and sit this afternoon if I need to get out of the elements to continue my practice. So look around your house. Maybe it's the toilet, the bathroom, the cloakroom, whatever you call it, that's the only place. If you literally mean a war zone, you're living in a war zone, then it is unfortunate. You'll have to just console yourself with this understanding of existence that we develop through this practice, that all things are impermanent, they are unsatisfactory, and they are out of our control. I know that's easier to say and harder to accept and very difficult to apply in very difficult situations, especially real war zones. If it's just family bickering, this is the nature of samsara. Maybe you could renounce all that, ordain, or go and stay on a retreat in a monastery. But if you can't, or if Buddhism isn't prevalent in your location, find another religious venue, or a library, or a sports hall, somewhere that has quiet areas you can sit, where there's some space around you where you'll be undisturbed, to go and just sit and be at peace, even if you just read to calm the mind at first, but go and try and practice meditation. If you can help with the peacemaking process within your home, then do so. But if not, if you'll only stir things up, leave it alone. But if they see you sitting quietly in a corner and not joining in with the battles, then they might well, and usually do, follow. I tried to search if you have mentioned ADHD in your talks. Would you be so I don't think I might have mentioned it. I don't think I've ever spoken specifically about ADHD because I don't know enough about it or much about it at all. Something to do with not being able to keep your attention very much on one thing at a time. But saying that, with all mental health conditions, it is reported, so this is not coming from my own experience, but it is reported from others' experience that meditation can only help. And when I say meditation, not some special yogic practices, but this simple Buddhist meditation I'm talking of here, of observing the breath, nothing more complicated than that. And if mental states arise, knowing that, allowing that without judgment, and seeing them pass away, as with physical states and feelings. This simple observational process in meditation is conducive to a calm and tranquil, peaceful state of mind. If your attention is directed here, directed there, all over the place, as a result of a condition, but saying that, as is most people's minds when they come to sit and meditate, the expression usually used is monkey mind, where a monkey, I have a monkey always now around my kuti. He's become quite friendly. He does literally jump from coconut palm to coconut palm, from tree to tree, constantly like this, as do our minds, thought to thought. Now, I don't know if that's what your mind does in ADHD, or it's something more significant, deeper, difficult to manage. You'd have to get professional advice on that, or a Buddhist practitioner that is experienced in that subject. So sorry I didn't come up with anything on your search. Your other question is, and any advice on meditation with ADHD would be appreciated. You know some friends who swear by medication in order to meditate. So if that's the case, if you need some medication for an illness, then that is, if it's prescribed medication by a medical practitioner, then that is perfectly okay and probably necessary, but I wouldn't know. Oh, there's another part to that question. Oh, you tried some medication and it did work. So if that's working for you, then please, continue with that. If you're able to meditate, if your mind is jumping around all over the place or it's difficult, that's normal. Everybody begins that way. Keep at it. Be determined. You'll get there in the end. The real monkey at my kuti, he's never going to settle down, that's it. He's just going to keep jumping around until the day he dies. But that is the nature of being a monkey, as opposed to a monk. When you're a monk or a lay practitioner, we learn to just be a little bit more disciplined than that monkey, and we sit still. And we allow our bodies with time to just slowly settle and relax. And our minds eventually, with time, will become calm, tranquil and peaceful. And we just wait and give it time. And if the first time you sit and meditate for 20 minutes, half an hour, and your mind is all over the place, your body keeps fidgeting or causing you scratches or discomfort, just forget about it until next time, but have a next time. Meditate again. Each time will get a little bit better. When I say better, more comfortable. You'll begin to enjoy it. Like anything we pick up, any hobby, anything we enjoy eventually, at first it's a little difficult. We need to learn, practice, train in it. You don't just instantly sit, say, now I'm meditating, where are the results? It can take some people years, some people months, some people just weeks. If you're very lucky, maybe just days. But without trying, you'll never know. Is there a life after death? I do appreciate if you could answer this question. So, I have been born into this life, and from my own, how do I put this? And I understand that to be as a consequence of causes and conditions that were put in place to be the cause of that birth into this life. And from that, I can conclude for myself that it will take causes and conditions to be put in place for there to be rebirth. But as for life after death, specifically the physical body dies, returns to the elements, like this sand, water, air, temperature. The thinking brain switches off, no longer works. The intellect, the knowledge is gone. The memory banks, dust also, wiped clean. There's no recognizable persona that lives after the physical death of the body. The real answer is, I don't know. I think you go on to say people give long-winded answers about, is there life after death? Who knows? Who really knows? Once we're dead, we cannot tell anyone. But through our practice, we can come to understand the nature of this life and what brought it about. And if you can, that'll give you a very good indication of what might happen next and what you need to do in order to direct that. Is there a way to eradicate phobias through meditation? Example, the fear of needles. So eradicating phobias, fears, and I would say mostly are irrational fears. Phobias relate to irrational fears. So the fear of, at the moment, going into that ocean, that sea, and swimming out, say, a kilometre or half a mile, is rational. You would surely be taken by the current and drown, however good a swimmer you are. That is the nature of that water. It's very dangerous at the moment, that particular stretch of Indian Ocean. That's a rational fear. But someone who's going to give me an injection to maybe, I don't know, a vaccination or an anaesthetic for your toothache or your treatment, it might cause a little pain, but it's there to help you. So fear of that is irrational. So firstly, just understanding that, dividing real fear and irrational fear helps. Meditation leads to the development of wisdom, and it's the development of wisdom that will ultimately eradicate phobias. Phobias, I don't know whether I had any phobias prior to my practice of meditation. I can't remember any particularly. Maybe a phobia of samsara eventually, I don't know. But the practice opens your eyes, helps you see clearly to the nature of existence, anicca, impermanence, dukkha, suffering, and anatta, not self. When you really do understand anatta, this physical body and this thinking brain not being yours, not being within your powers of control at all, even this heart is beating at its own pace, these lungs are breathing the way they wish to. You're not controlling those. You cannot. When they decide to stop, you die. That's it. End of story, this lifetime. When you really understand that, this not self business, I think phobias just go away. I suppose I would have been much more jumpy and would have avoided things like snakes and big poisonous, venomous creatures of the night. But even last night there was some goings on in my kuti. I think the snake was having a bit of an argument with some of the cats, or the other way around. And I thought, I'm pretty sure that the snake is now within my kuti, and it's a very large snake that lives right near me. But I don't even think twice about it now. I know it's going to avoid me as much as I would have previously avoided it. And as long as I remain in the place where I'm laying, where I'm sleeping, nothing's so far come to harm me, so I can safely assume nothing will. And that's come from experience. And what is experience? It's building up knowledge, not necessarily intellectual knowledge, but applicable knowledge. And that is true wisdom. And that true wisdom, when you've had enough vaccinations, enough needles, you'll no longer fear them. Do you subscribe to the notion that the Four Noble Truths, for the nobles, corresponds to diagnosis, etiology, prognosis, and prescription in Western medicine? Okay, I'm not quite sure I would go as far to say as I subscribe to any notion, other than I fully subscribe to the notion of the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths is very much like a prescription of the Buddha being the physician, the medic, the doctor. So the condition that the Buddha, the physician, diagnoses is suffering. We establish the cause of the suffering. I guess that's that next word I've not heard of, etiology. We don't need a prognosis. We know there's suffering. When we establish the cause of the suffering, I suppose, yes, the prognosis is knowing the end. There is an end of suffering, so yes. And the prescription is the Noble Eightfold Path. So yes, Dr. Buddha says you're suffering. The cause of the suffering is desire, or greed, hatred and delusion. The way to undermine those root defilements, the cause of suffering, and experience the end of suffering, Nirodha Dukkha, or Dukkha Nirodha, is by following the Noble Eightfold Path. And that is the prescription. So in a sense, yes, I do, having thought about it. And I think this is a common Buddhist analogy in some fields. Can you please make a video on Shramana rituals? So we've just spoken about that, haven't we? That's the same commenter, yes. So I won't make a video on something we just don't do. But what we do can be considered as Shramana practices to some. But it more relates to other religions and philosophies. There are times I snap out of my bliss and go days, weeks, being degenerate. Not literally. Oh, not literally. Just not studying or living to the present. I become mindless, a mindless consumer. And you did begin now, I missed it because of the lighting's a bit iffy for seeing the comments. I'm young and on my path. Okay, so don't beat yourself up about it. Just make a routine, make a determination to practice. Whether we're young or old, we're living in samsara, we're living in worldly life. We're not living within the confines of a monastery or any religious organization or retreat center all of the time. There are going to be distractions, and there are going to be times when we fall into distracted behavior. Things will draw our attention. If we break the precepts, then we make the determination not to break the precepts again, but then leave it at that. And forget about what cannot be changed, that is the past, but focus on keeping those precepts into the future. Other activities, not breaking the precepts, but just as you say, not studying or doing what you set out to do, is just breaching your own arrangement with yourself, your determination, adhitthana, to say practice meditation in the morning, practice meditation in the evening. Just again, make a determination from now on to continue that practice. But don't tell yourself off. It's only natural that we might slip up from time to time. So, as long as you're aware of that, you've got somewhere. You're not just mindlessly, with no diligence, leading a heedless lifestyle. Otherwise you wouldn't have written the comment saying you sometimes do these things, criticizing yourself. But don't criticize yourself. Know yourself. Know this is your behavior. It's currently natural, but with practice, the keeping of precepts, practice of meditation, the development of wholesome mind states and reduction of unwholesome mind states, you will ultimately reduce these behavioral characteristics and start to eradicate greed, hatred and delusion, the cause of those activities or actions. Karma. May I ask, do you need to pay for visa living as a monk like this abroad. Yes, originally, and it's a long visa. I have a visa for India, which was a 5-year visa, and a visa for here, which is a 5-year visa. And you cannot stay usually in either country or any country for longer than 6 months without leaving and returning. So I'm able every 6 months to return to my Sangha in India and come back again shortly afterwards, and therefore utilising both visas. And like I said at the beginning, originally all of this was funded out of my stewardship fund, which was in trust, coming from my original savings, and has been used to fund this activity in order for me to ordain, train and remain in these countries and not be a burden on anyone else, as well as with the support of those following me from abroad, and then the help and assistance of all those locally who give me food each day and shelter. But visas over the long term, if are long visas, are not so expensive as short-term visas that one might be paying for a few weeks holiday each year going abroad. They equate to much the same cost, but for a much longer period of time. Eventually, I will hopefully, with the assistance of my Sangha and the Sangha I've come to know here in Sri Lanka, fellow brethren, and their support and their backing, be able to get what we have in Thailand, the equivalent of a monk's visa. They don't have the equivalent as such here in Sri Lanka, but they have something similar that means basically a stamp in my passport allows me to remain here as long as I'm a monk practicing and living in accordance with the Bhikkhu Vinaya, presumably indefinitely until it is time to go elsewhere. But I don't think too much about these things. These things just fall into place and happen. If something needs to be organised, fortunately there are people, administrators in the background, whom are very happy to help with that. Why have you not started with Om? Om. That's more of another practice, faith, philosophy, religion. You might hear it in Om Mani Padme Hum, the Tibetan Buddhist chant, but I haven't began with that. I'm not sure what talk you were referring to, or if it was the chanting, because we don't. It's not part of the Pali Canon, the Buddhist religious scriptures. In the teachings, this sound of Om that is supposedly to resonate with other spiritual things is not part of the Buddha's teachings, and it is just sound as much as the sound I'm hearing in the background, the sea, the wind in the breeze in the trees above me. Sound is sound. The chanting is sound. Its words in the Pali are reflections on the teachings of the Buddha. So we begin with that. Maybe Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa, when paying homage to the Buddha and reflections on the Buddha Dharma Sangha. But we don't have any of these specific sound kind of chants. Is there life after death? That's the same question. Or was I supposed to read the next answer? Yeah, I think I discussed it. Does having some pets count as a sort of negative-ish act? For example, if there's a stray cat and I know that it's murdered 1,000 insects and rodents, but still keep him, well, there's a number of questions there. Pets themselves, monks can't have pets. I don't have pets. I know there are a number of cats, but they're feral cats. They're stray cats. They're wandering cats. They may be owned by, or not owned. They may live with predominantly a single family. But if they do, they don't spend much time with that family. They seem to spend most of their time in my kuti. However, they're not my pets. Monks cannot keep pets or human beings or anything or anyone in captivity of any kind. So in that sense, if you're keeping an animal for your own pleasure in captivity, it's not good karma for yourself, because it's not fair. Let the thing go free if it's possible. But if you're looking after it, protecting it, because it's its only means of survival, then that's not bad karma as a lay practitioner. Its own karma, as to whether it's killing thousands of insects or rodents or not, is not your karma. We don't have collective karma or share karma. We can be a part of collective karma for our own part, our own contribution, our own actions of body, speech and mind will have their own results. Karma is actions, results is vipaka. Vipaka karma is the results of actions. Our results come from our own actions. Living with someone whom has bad actions, whether it's because you maintain their existence as a pet, or even if they're a colleague or a partner whom creates bad karma, however much, is still you are only creating good karma by looking after them. Even better karma if you can help them not commit so much bad karma. So I feed the cats that visit me to stop them killing additional rodents to bring in and eat, or sometimes bring in out of generosity to feed me, which they will do. They'll kill and they'll share their food very often, it seems. That's what I experience, that's what I've seen. I don't know whether that's natural behaviour. But I'd rather they didn't kill to share anything with me, and I go a step further by giving them a little food to make them less hungry and therefore not want to kill. But they do go out and do their hunting and keep their skills honed, because in my absence they would need to survive. But their actions are not my actions, as your actions are not your pet's actions. We are the heirs to our own karma, the beneficiaries of our karma, and that karma alone. I think I've been speaking for rather a long time, but I've no idea. I certainly can't see the time on this little screen here. I really hope you can create and gradually build up a playlist titled Depression and Anxiety, etc. Ah, yes. And you see from a handful of my videos that they do talk about that. So I think it's become harder to find things on YouTube, generally speaking, because I used to be able to say, if you search English Buddhist monk, depression and anxiety, my talk on depression and anxiety would come up, and it did. That's how I would find it to send you the link. But now when I do that, I just get this same monk coming up, who's not an English monk, he's a Sinhalese monk, but speaks very good English. So I've tried different ways, but not with, in great earnest. I've just looked and thought, no, this doesn't work. Playlists, there are playlists categorizing my talks to some extent. Dharma talks, questions and answers. Let me answer this really the best way I can. Although there are talks just on anxiety and depression, and if you go to the Dharma playlist, Dharma talk playlist, look for the most popular, sort them with the most viewed, and then scroll down, you'll find the relevant title. It's the quickest way to find it. But the practice as a whole, holistically, living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path, is how we go about eradicating depression and anxiety. So really, no individual or particular talk or playlist is going to eliminate depression and anxiety. But a holistic practice and living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path will. And each and every one of these talks, and inclusive of those questions, these questions and answers sessions, which may be seeming mostly irrelevant to your current situation and experience, waiting for your question to come up or waiting for something closely related to your situation. It is all relating to what we need to do to solve our problems. So whatever our problem, anxiety, fear, depression, physical pain, loss, grief, wanting something we can't have, it's all suffering. And what are we trying to do through our practice? Alleviate suffering. We recognize this suffering, dukkha. We recognize, we know there's a cause of suffering, dukkha. We identify that cause of greed, hatred and delusion, lobha, dosa, moha. And then we eradicate it through this practice. Keep the precepts, practice meditation. This in turn will develop wisdom and understanding. So the answer to every question is either it's because of anicca, dukkha, anatta. It's because all things are impermanent, unsatisfactory and out of your control. Or the answer is, when it's well, what can I do about it, is to practice, and that is sila, samadhi, panya. Keep precepts, practice meditation, develop wisdom. And developing wisdom isn't an intellectual process, as I've said time and time again. It will come naturally as a result of keeping precepts and practicing meditation through the realization, recognition, seeing clearly, awakening to the characteristics of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta. It's cyclical, it all goes round. One thing leads to another. So although this talk isn't specifically about depression and anxiety, I hope it will go some way towards giving you the tools, the ingredients necessary to alleviate depression and anxiety. It might not be called that, it might not be categorized as that, but this is what we're talking about: eradicating our depression, our suffering from life. So I think on that note, as much as I'm enjoying sitting here talking to you, it's time to bring it to a close for now. Until next time, be happy and stay well. I should always say, I do always say, that if there's something useful, then use it, but if not, just let it go and don't let it trouble you. Don't worry about it. Put it down. Like all these things that are unnecessary in our lives that are causing us grief or stress, we put them down like heavy bags. Put them down for a while. Take a moment to yourself. To be happy, stay well, Sukhi Hotu.